How does a sous chef with swirly eyebrows transform all the way from this
You shoot off at the mouth and expect that I'm just going to take it, old man?
to this? The answer is, complicated. First off, this guy has two different backstories and two major story arcs centered around him. And guess what? He's the only character in One Piece to carry that amount of baggage. Sheesh. And if that's not enough, this guy was also the first freaking Naruto. Seriously, Mr. Swirly Eyebrow here almost beat the Orange Ninja to the name game. That's interesting as hell. So, in this video, we'll be talking about the Straw Hat Crew's smoothest operator, Black Leg Sanji. He's got legs of steel, hands of gold, mainly for cooking, and a heart that somehow survives all the nosebleeds from flirting too hard. But hey, why talk about it when we can just serve it hot, right? So, let's get into it. Our story begins in the East Blue, one of the 4 major seas in the One Piece world. Monkey D. Luffy wants to find the infamous One Piece treasure and become king of the pirates, and he needs about 10 members of his crew. By the 20th episode, he's gathered a total of 3 crew members. Roanoa Zoro, his first mate and powerful swordsman. Nami, the ship's navigator and financial secretary. And finally, Usopp, the marksman and ship engineer. But there was always one thing missing, a chef. And Luffy loves to eat. So, at a floating restaurant in the middle of the sea where pirates and marines eat side by side and occasionally break the furniture, we meet Sanji, suit-wearing, cigarette-smoking, and leg-kicking sous chef of the Baratie. He doesn't waste words, he doesn't waste food, and he definitely doesn't tolerate disrespect in his kitchen. So, when a pompous marine officer named Lieutenant Fullbody tries to throw his weight around and insults the food, Sanji doesn't argue. He sends him flying with a swift kick and a scathing attitude.
Don't ever waste food around me again.
This is Sanji's first introduction in the series. He serves delicious meals for a living, but he greets rude and ungrateful customers with a boot to the face. We are then also introduced to the elderly owner of the floating restaurant, Zeff. With his towering hat, braided mustache, and wooden peg leg, you already know he was a gangster in his prime. He berates Sanji for attacking a customer, but doesn't let the customer off the hook either. At first glance, Zeff and Sanji seem like they hate each other's guts, but the only reason Sanji became the man he is today is almost entirely because of this old man. Behind all of Sanji's swagger and smoothness is a man with a pretty deep code, thanks to Zeff, and that is, nobody goes hungry, not even enemies. Like, seriously, if you killed someone right in front of him, Sanji would still cook for you if you're famished. This, we find out soon enough when a certain pirate called Jean stumbles into the Baratie restaurant. He and his crewmates had been searching for the One Piece treasure until they got absolutely clobbered by a powerful ally of the Marines. Now, Marines are like the only legit law enforcement in this world, but they delegate some authority to mercenaries or warlords of the sea to keep the pirate population in check. So anyway, Jean and his mates were destroyed by one of these warlords, but he and a few crew members survived, and now he's on the verge of dying from hunger. So, upon entering the restaurant, Jean shoots a marine that had been chasing him at point-blank range and then demands food. Everyone refuses to feed him, cause he just freaking shot someone, and he's broke as hell, and he's ugly, and he's a member of an infamous pirate fleet belonging to Captain Don Krieg. But Sanji? Nah, Sanji doesn't flinch. He quietly heads to the kitchen, makes a warm meal, and tells Jean to eat. Because to Sanji, food is sacred. You don't get to decide who's worthy of a meal. You feed people because they're hungry, and that's the end of it. Bad ass. After receiving the food, Jean starts crying his eyes out. It's just a meal, but for Jean, it means everything.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much. I thought it was over. I truly thought I was going to die.
Luffy sees this act of kindness and just knows he's found his next crewmate. He even invites Sanji to join him right then and there, but Sanji declines. However, Sanji doesn't realize it now, but that single act of kindness is about to bring hell to his doorstep. But before that, Luffy is forced to work in Baratie as a chore boy. That's his punishment for accidentally discharging a cannonball and damaging a part of the restaurant. While working his ass off, Luffy hears all the juicy gossip about Sanji and his chaotic relationship with Zeff. Luffy's crewmates, on their part, are feasting away at the dining area. That's when Sanji sets his eyes on Nami and immediately starts flirting with her. Sanji loves women. He's even made a vow to never hit a woman even if she's trying to kill him. Sheesh. Now that sounds a little over the top. But wait just a minute, there's actually a really good reason for this. Just stay with me till the end. Anyway, Zeff gives Sanji permission to join the Straw Hats and go pirating the seas, which kinda irks Sanji. Luffy sees an opportunity and asks Sanji to join his crew, but again, Sanji declines. Not long after, Jean leaves and returns to the Baratie with his boss, Don Krieg. Everyone is afraid of this Krieg dude cause he's like the worst of the worst pirates in this part of the One Piece world, but he acts all polite just so he can get something to eat, so Sanji feeds the guy. After eating, this dude drops the act and decks Sanji with a powerful blow to the jaw, literally biting the hand that just fed him. Krieg's real goal here is to dump his broken down pile of crap of a ship and take over the Baratie as his new pirate ship. What a leech! He also orders the chefs to feed his remaining crewmates waiting outside, all 100 of them who are barely alive due to hunger, but the restaurant cooks are like hell to the no. As for Sanji, he doesn't regret feeding Don Krieg because hunger is hunger, even when it comes wrapped in betrayal. As he tries to cook food for the 100 near-death hungry pirates, the other chefs start suspecting that he's probably a spy working for Don Krieg. I mean, feeding the enemy twice? It does look kinda sus to be honest. But Sanji believes he's doing the right thing, and if it leads to a fight, then so be it. While the chefs are freaking out, the restaurant owner Zeff has already prepared the 100 meals and delivers them to Don Krieg. Krieg immediately recognizes Zeff as the notorious captain of the Cook Pirates, whose name was Redfoot Zeff, because he often stained his boots with the blood of his enemies. Zeff had also made it to the treacherous part of the ocean called the Grand Line, which is where the One Piece treasure is said to be hidden. But Zeff has moved on from his pirate life, a decision that Don Krieg mocks him for. Krieg takes all the food, then feeds his men back to strength, and as expected, declares war on the Baratie. As Sanji fights off the attackers, Jean suddenly pulls a gun on Zeff and begs Sanji to just give up and hand over the Baratie to Don Krieg. Things are looking bad, and just as Krieg is about to take the ship, the truth of Sanji's bond with Zeff comes boiling to the surface. You see, many years ago, Sanji was a kid working in the kitchen of a passenger ship called the Orbit. Right from childhood, Sanji had one big dream he always wanted to fulfill: to find the All Blue. You see, the All Blue is basically a legendary chef's paradise, filled with exotic ingredients and fish from all the 4 major seas in the One Piece world. And guess what? It's also somewhere in the Grand Line.
The All Blue is a place where fish from all 4 seas live. There's fish from East Blue, the West Blue, the North Blue, and the South Blue.
All of the adult cooks in the Orbit laughed at him and treated the All Blue like it was some kind of fairy tale. But Sanji, he never stopped dreaming. One day, the Cook Pirates attacked the Orbit and stole a bunch of jewelry and money from the passengers. This eventually led to a brutal confrontation between Sanji and Zeff, with Sanji vowing that he wasn't going to die until he found the All Blue. This declaration drew laughter from the Cook Pirates. But Zeff never so much as cracked a smile. Finding the All Blue has also been a lifelong dream of his too. As the pirates were about to leave the Orbit, a violent storm wrecked both passenger and pirate ships. Sanji got thrown into the sea, but surprisingly was rescued by Zeff. Both of them ended up stranded together on a desolate rock in the middle of the sea, with barely enough food for one. Zeff gave Sanji some food while keeping a much larger bag for himself. He threatened the kid to never show his face to him unless he saw a rescue ship. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, but there was no ship in sight to save them. Sanji rationed his meals, but it only went so far before hunger started taking its toll on him, and when he finally went to check on Zeff, thinking the man had hoarded a much larger share of the food, he discovered the devastating truth. Zeff's bag was filled with treasure. He hadn't eaten a single bite. Now, there's an important distinction between the manga and the anime about this particular incident. The manga makes it clear that Zeff ate his own leg to survive, while the anime shows that he lost his leg while trying to save Sanji from drowning. Both are still a testament to Zeff's sacrifice, but one is obviously more television appropriate than the other. Anyway, the duo was soon rescued, and this dire incident inspired Zeff to open a restaurant in the middle of the sea that would feed anyone who's hungry. Ever since then, Sanji abandoned his childhood dream of finding the All Blue, choosing to repay his debt to Zeff by working for him and protecting the Baratie. Sanji owes Zeff everything, and that's why leaving with Luffy isn't so simple. After hearing Sanji's story, Luffy gets angry and decides to take matters into his own hands. Yeah, Luffy's strategy is to simply destroy the Baratie so that Don Krieg doesn't have anything to take over. An absolutely insane take, not gonna lie. Of course, that strategy doesn't sit well with Sanji, who'd rather fight and protect the old man's restaurant. Then, Jean jumps in and starts fighting Sanji, and mostly dominates during the fight. He clearly hates every second of it though, so it's no surprise when he simply gives up mid-fight.
This man saved my life. I can't, Don Krieg! I won't do it!
Jean then tries to talk sense into Don Krieg, begging him to leave the Baratie alone, but Krieg, being the ultimate jerk, calls him a traitor and pulls out one of his nastiest weapons, poison gas. He launches it at the restaurant, aiming to take everyone out in one shot. Jean, now officially kicked out of his crew, tosses a gas mask to Luffy at the last second. When the smoke clears, we see that Jean has been poisoned and is barely breathing. Sanji and Zeff immediately shout for the other chefs to help him, because that's how these two roll, even for enemies who held them up at gunpoint just 5 seconds ago. Seeing Jean at death's door sends Luffy over the edge. He goes absolutely berserk on Don Krieg, punching straight through his so-called unbreakable armor like it's cardboard. After landing his ultimate jutsu of punches, Luffy ends up falling into the sea and almost drowning, but he gets rescued by Sanji. Jean takes it upon himself to evacuate Don Krieg and his crewmates, promising to see Luffy again someday in the Grand Line. With Don Krieg finally defeated and the chaos at Baratie settling down, Luffy gives it one last shot. He asks Sanji again to join his crew, and for the third time, Sanji says no. Not because he doesn't want to, but because he feels like it's not the right time. He owes everything to Baratie, to Zeff, and he can't just walk away. Zeff watches Luffy and Sanji's interaction from the sidelines, quietly smiling to himself. He's known for a while that Sanji's outgrown this place, that his dream is too big for a floating restaurant. But Zeff also knows that Sanji won't leave on his own. He's way too stubborn, way too loyal. So, Zeff comes up with the most ridiculous plan only a parent in denial could think of. He tells the other chefs to start picking on Sanji by insulting his cooking and acting like complete assholes until Sanji feels like he's no longer welcome. And it damn near works. Sanji gets annoyed, then confused, then suspicious, and eventually the truth slips out. He overhears Zeff asking Luffy to take him along to the Grand Line, but Luffy refuses. Not because he doesn't want him, but because it has to be Sanji's choice and no one else's. As Luffy prepares to leave and reunite with the rest of his crew, Sanji finally makes his decision. He agrees to be the chef on Luffy's ship.
Sanji?
I'll be joining your little crew on your journey to be king of the pirates.
The moment feels huge, like a massive weight has been lifted, but at the same time, it crushes him emotionally. Baratie wasn't just a job, it was the place that took him in when he had nowhere else to go, the place he learned to fight, to cook, to survive. And even though this peg-legged, tough-love, tongue-lashing old man wasn't his biological father, he sure as hell acted like one. Sanji starts packing just the essentials and a few souvenirs. Luffy, of course, grabs way too much meat like he's planning a buffet on the ocean. But right before Sanji steps off the Baratie, Zeff calls out one final goodbye. Now, feeling overwhelmed, Sanji falls to his knees, tears pouring down his face, and thanks Zeff for everything he's done since that fateful day he nearly drowned at sea. And he makes a promise to never forget the old man. Even Zeff, who rarely shows any emotions, starts to tear up.
The damn wusses. Real men should part without a word, let alone tears.
Damn, who's cutting onions now? This isn't just like any goodbye, you see. Sanji and Zeff's relationship shows one of One Piece's most important themes. Family isn't always the one you're born into. Sometimes it's the people who save your life, yell at you for disrespecting unruly customers, and kick you out the door when it's time to grow up. So, just like that, Sanji becomes the 5th member of the Straw Hat Pirates. Once Sanji and his crew make it to the Grand Line, we start getting little hints that there's more to Mr. Swirly Eyebrow than meets the eye. He may act like a smooth-talking flirt and fancy chef, but deep down, this guy's got secrets. One of the first big clues shows up during the Alabasta arc. The Kingdom of Alabasta is falling apart with civil war right around the corner. The main villain is this guy, Crocodile, a guy who looks like a mob boss and acts like a hero in public, but behind the scenes, he's scheming to take over the whole country. At one point, most of the Straw Hats get trapped in a steel cage surrounded by giant crocodiles. But guess who's still free? Sanji and the Straw Hat medic, Chopper. They go full spy mode to sneak into Crocodile's base and save their crewmates. And here's where things get interesting. While pretending to be someone else over the phone, Sanji calls himself Mr. Prince. At the time, it sounds like a random alias, but it turns out to be a big old clue about his true background, something I'll talk about soon enough. Also, can we talk about how effortlessly cool Sanji is during rescues?
I'll teach you how to behave. Bad manner kick course!
Damn, he's such a cool character. Of course, not everyone in the crew is totally impressed. Nami usually brushes off his flirty nonsense, and Zoro treats Sanji like his personal rival in a never-ending dick measuring contest. But deep down, they've got each other's backs, and that's what counts. Along their swashbuckling journey, the Straw Hats make their way into the government facility called Enies Lobby. This is where Sanji gets his first power-up. This arc is widely regarded as one of the best in the series, and it's mainly because it showcases the length Sanji and his crewmates will go to be reunited with one of their own. The Straw Hat Pirates charge into Enies Lobby like a wrecking ball, all to save their crewmate Nico Robin, who's been captured by CP9. CP9 is made up of 6 agents who work for the world government that basically controls everything in this universe. But there's a twist. Robin is stuck in some peculiar handcuffs, and only one key can unlock them. Problem is, each member of CP9 has one of the keys, and nobody knows which is the real deal. So, the Straw Hats split up to go after each member of CP9. Sanji squares up with the sneaky wolfman Jabra, ready to settle things with flaming kicks. Chopper takes on the wild and weird Kumadori, while Frankie wrestles the round and chatty Fukuru in an all-out brawl. Nami steps up for a battle of brains and beauty against Khalifa. Zoro faces off against the sword-swinging giraffe guy Kaku. And Luffy, well, he bolts straight for the big boss himself, Rob Lucci. It's high stakes, and every fight is personal. The Straw Hats aren't just fighting to win, they're fighting to bring their family back. But CP9 is no joke. These bad boys and gals can freaking skywalk. They display a level of strength and abilities that we haven't seen up until this point. So while the Straw Hats are all split up, Usopp finds himself beaten to a bloody pulp fighting against Jabra, and just when it looks like Jabra's about to finish him off, Sanji makes a grand entrance with a nasty-ass kick straight to the face, sending Jabra crashing into a wall. That's right, the chef is here and he's about to make this match spicy as hell. Jabra tries to fight back using a deadly claw attack, but Sanji easily dodges it like it's nothing. Then, Sanji hits back with a fancy kick, but Jabra toughens up with his iron body technique. Jabra then starts running his mouth, claiming Robin is his long-lost sister and begging Sanji to save her. He even tosses his key over, playing the sympathy card. Sanji walks over, looking like he bought the sudden change of heart, and then kicks Jabra right in the chin, exposing the obvious lie. Nice try, wolf boy. At this point, Sanji's pissed. He's done playing around. Jabra tries one more desperate attack, a spinning kickstorm that knocks Sanji back into a wall. But then Sanji gets up and starts spinning, faster and faster until his leg catches fire. Yeah, he's cooking now. Literally. This technique is called Diabla Jamba, or the Foot of the Devil. With his burning leg, Sanji launches a fiery kick straight into Jobra's gut, completely smashing through his iron body defenses. The impact is so strong, it breaks Jobra's ribs and burns him to the bone. Jobra tries to take the fight to the air, thinking he has the advantage with all his fancy skywalking moves. But Sanji chases him and lands one final flaming kick right to Jobra's face, ending the fight in the most culinary style.
God may have created food, but the devil created spices.
As you may have noticed, Sanji doesn't fight with his hands. Why? Well, because his hands are reserved for his cooking greatness. Thanks to his mentor Zeff, the Straw Hat Chef only fights with his legs. And alongside Luffy and Zoro, he's part of the crew's powerhouse trio, also known as the Monster Trio. So, whether it's serving dinner or serving beatdowns, Sanji always delivers. Anywho, after the Straw Hats take down CP9 at Eni's lobby and help rescue Robin, the world government finally realizes these pirates are a serious thorn in their side. So, what do? They slap some big-ass bounties on him. Sanji gets hit with a bounty of 77 million berries, the third highest on the crew at the time. Not bad for a guy that kicks people into next week. However, every attempt to get his bounty picture failed woefully, so the bounty photographer used a terrible sketch instead. Things calm down for a bit for Sanji and his crewmates, until the Sabaody arc. That's when Luffy does something absolutely wild. He punches a celestial dragon. These ugly guys, the celestial dragons I mean, are considered gods in the One Piece world, totally off limits. Hitting one of them is like setting off a nuclear alarm. So because of that, the Marines come crashing down on the Straw Hats pretty hard. The result is complete and total defeat. The crew gets separated, and each member is sent flying to a different corner of the world. Sanji ends up in Kamabaka Kingdom, which is, let's just say, not what he expected. Sanji wakes up on this weird island. He's all bruised up, and through his blurry vision, he sees what looks like a beautiful woman. Her name's Elizabeth, and she's nursing him back to health. Elizabeth starts asking Sanji if he likes makeup and wearing dresses, and Sanji, being the smooth flirt he is, says yes, thinking that this is his chance to impress her. He's ready to fall in love, until Elizabeth runs at him with a dress in hand and body slams him into the ground. Turns out Elizabeth isn't a she, but rather a big, strong Okama. Okamas are men who dress and live as women, and the ones on this island are all very excited to make Sanji one of them. Sanji is understandably horrified, I mean, who wouldn't be? But the problem gets even bigger when the Okamas start thinking Sanji's just hiding his true Okama self and that he really needs to embrace his inner diva. So naturally, our boy here is screaming on the inside and sprinting for his dear life. The next day, Sanji runs right into the royal palace where he meets the acting queen of the island, Caroline, and begs for a ship to leave. Caroline says sure, but only if Sanji can beat the strongest fighter on the island, which just so happens to be Caroline himself. There's a catch though. The duel must follow Okama tradition. That means Sanji has to fight in a dress, full makeup, and high heels. It's the most awkward showdown of his life. During the fight, which more or less resembles a ballet rehearsal, Sanji tries to land a hit, but Caroline dodges every single one. Then he notices something weird. Caroline keeps ducking to peek under Sanji's dress.
Oh, don't tell me he's looking at...
Ooh, nice upskirt, honey.
Hey, don't look, you perv!
Sanji's embarrassed, but pretends he doesn't care. Caroline starts psychoanalyzing him mid-fight, saying Sanji's tough guy act is just a way to hide his inner Okama spirit. Sanji is confused, embarrassed, and getting totally thrown off his game. Caroline uses a strange technique that messes with Sanji's head, and the next thing we know, Sanji's completely converted into an Okama. I can't stress this enough, but Sanji is now queer? This is probably the most jolting character development in all of anime. Time passes by, and Sanji seems to have accepted his new life, until he finds a newspaper. In the paper, he reads about the Marineford War, the epic battle where Luffy tried to save his brother from the Marines. That shocking news jolts him back to reality. The Okama identity shatters, and Sanji remembers who he truly is. No more heels, no more makeup, no more confusion. Whatever happens in Okama Land stays in Okama Land. Damn it, Sanji, we almost lost you there. Hope you had fun though. Mind you, the Straw Hats are still separated at this point. They all get a cryptic message from Luffy telling them to remain in hiatus for 2 years and use the opportunity to train and become stronger before reuniting at Sabaody. After a happy reunion 2 years later, Sanji is just glad he can finally stare at real women again. From Sabaody, the crew sets sail for the New World, which is the second half of the Grand Line. This stretch of ocean is where the Yonko, or the Four Emperors, reside. The Yonko are the most powerful pirates in the One Piece world, so you already know the stakes are the highest they've ever been. Right off the bat, we see that Sanji's 2-year hiatus at Kamabaka Kingdom has yielded some good results. Not only are his kicks more devastating, but thanks to 2 years of running away from drag queens, he can now skywalk like those damn CP9 agents.
Sanji can walk on air now, like those other guys!
How cool is that? Anyway, Sanji's mysterious past finally starts catching up with him not long after the Straw Hats enter the New World. In the kingdom of Dressrosa, the Straw Hats set in motion a series of world-changing events after defeating Doflamingo, one of the warlords of the sea. The news spreads like wildfire, and the world government is not exactly thrilled. As a result, the crew's bounties go through the roof. Now, here's the fun part. Sanji, who didn't even do that much in the actual fight against Doflamingo, still gets a massive bounty boost, 177 million berries. But there's something weird about it. While everyone else's wanted posters reads dead or alive, Sanji's wanted poster says only alive. Clearly, someone is pulling some strings behind the scenes. Before all the chaos in Dressrosa, the crew splits into 2 groups. Sanji's group heads for the island of Zou, and for once, things seem calm by New World standards. And by calm, I mean Sanji is busy flirting with every single mink woman he can find. Minks, by the way, are adorable humanoid animals who are among the numerous species in the One Piece verse. But peace doesn't last too long. One day, Sanji and Nami spot 2 very familiar and very dangerous guests arriving on Zou. Pekams, a lion-looking mink who works for Big Mom, one of the 4 emperors, and Capone Beji, a literal mafia boss turned pirate who's an ally of Big Mom. Their arrival means only one thing: trouble with a capital T. Upon sighting them, a Straw Hat captive, Caesar Clown, freaks out and begs Sanji to protect him. But Sanji queries him about his connections to the Big Mom pirates. You see, Caesar is a crazy scientist who used to work on shady experiments for powerful clients. Turns out, Big Mom hired Caesar in the past to make special candy that could turn her kids into giant super soldiers. But Caesar pocketed the money and partied away instead of actually doing the work. Now, Big Mom wants answers, and probably his head. That aside, Sanji realizes the Straw Hats themselves already have beef with Big Mom, thanks to Luffy picking a fight with her right as they entered the New World. So, he goes to meet with Beji and Pekams. At first, it's surprisingly civil. Pekams even thanks Sanji for saving the Mink tribe earlier from a pirate attack. Then, Pekams quietly reveals the real reason for their visit. They've been ordered to take Caesar and deliver a message that's meant to tear the Straw Hats apart. But since Sanji saved his people, Pekams is willing to cut a deal. Give up Caesar, and they'll leave the Straw Hats alone.
The mission is a failure. Just hand over Caesar. I'll explain to Mama that we let the Straw Hats get away this time. Okay?
Seems fair, until Capone Beji decides he's had enough of the nice guy act. He shoots Pekams in the back and uses his bizarre powers to trap Sanji, Caesar, and the other Straw Hats inside his literal body. Yeah, this guy can turn his body into a castle. It's just as weird as it sounds. Inside this guy's stomach castle, Beji drops the real bombshell. Sanji's been invited to Big Mom's tea party. Why? Because there's a wedding. The 3rd son of the Vinsmoke family is supposed to marry Charlotte Pudding, Big Mom's 35th daughter. That 3rd son is Vinsmoke's Sanji, the Straw Hat Chef. Sanji's friends are shocked, but not as shocked as Sanji himself. I mean, imagine being invited to your own wedding. Naturally, Sanji refuses, but Beji makes it clear. This isn't a request, it's an order. Then, one of Beji's creepy henchmen Vito whispers something into Sanji's ear. We don't hear what it is, but whatever it was, it shakes Sanji to his core. Sanji grabs a pen and writes a letter to his crewmates, apologizing and explaining that he has to leave. He doesn't tell them everything, just enough to let them know he's not abandoning them. Then, in classic Sanji fashion, he makes a move to protect his friends. He kicks Nami, Chopper, and Brook out of Beji's body to safety, and holds Caesar at gunpoint so no one chases chases after him. As Sanji disappears, his crewmates cry out, desperate for him to stay. But Sanji makes a promise. He will come back. And just like that, the Straw Hats lose their cook once again. This time around, Sanji's past is about to make things very, very complicated. When Sanji's stuck aboard Big Mom's ship, we begin to learn bit by bit how this whole situation unfolded. First up, Baron Tamago, this guy who looks like a walking egg, tries to talk Sanji into joining the Big Mom pirates. According to him, this whole setup was Sanji's father's idea. In addition to that, Big Mom herself supposedly respects Sanji's skills both in the kitchen and on the battlefield. She's offering him a high-ranking spot in her crew. But Sanji isn't buying it. He wants nothing to do with Big Mom, the vinsmokes, or any plan that drags him back to his childhood trauma. As far as he's concerned, he cut ties with his family a long time ago, and there's no way he's cooking for a crew that casually throws away its own members like Beji did with Pacom's.
Yeah, screw that! These hands have one job only, and that's cooking for my crewmates as long as they'll have me.
Then, Vito shows Sanji a photo of his future bride, Charlotte Pudding, and, well, Sanji falls for her instantly. Vito, clearly excited, starts fanboying over the Germa 66, the military wing of the Germa Kingdom. Don't worry, here's the context. Germa 66 is basically a futuristic army led by Sanji's biological family, the Vinsmokes. They're known for using clone soldiers and high-tech suits, but in One Piece literature, they're painted as villains in kids' propaganda comics meant to make the Marines look heroic. Ironically, those comics had the opposite effect on Vito. He idolized Germa 66 growing up, and now he's completely starstruck to be talking to a real Vinsmoke. But Sanji isn't flattered. He's pissed. He tells Vito straight up that he wants nothing to do with Germa or the Twisted family behind it. Vito reminds everyone, including a very nervous Caesar Clown, that this wedding is a big deal. It's supposed to unite the Vinsmokes and the Charlotte family, giving Big Mom a serious political and military advantage in her quest to conquer the seas and find the One Piece. Sanji still says no. He doesn't care about royal alliances or power plays. Then we fast forward 3 days, and Sanji finally meets Pudding face to face. She's kind, beautiful, and just as awkward as he is. They hit it off, but Sanji is up front. He tells her he can't go through with the marriage because leaving his crew isn't an option. Finally, all the ships controlled by the Vinsmokes are gathered in Whole Cake Island, Big Mom's home turf. Meet Germa, the only country in the world that doesn't actually have land. It consists of numerous vessels that travel independently, but when they lock together, they form a floating empire. Sounds cool, right? Well, not when it's ruled by the Vinsmoke family, a bunch of cold-hearted, science-obsessed freaks who once conquered the entire North Blue and are trying to do it again just for old time's sake. In one of Germa's royal chambers, Sanji is having a chat with his older sister Reiju. Out of all of his siblings, Reiju is the only one who ever shows him real kindness. She tries to talk some sense into him, explaining their father's big plan to rebuild the Vinsmoke Empire by forming a political alliance with Big Mom through Sanji's arranged marriage. From Reiju's point of view, her father's plan makes perfect sense. Marry into power, get access to luxury, and command an army. What's not to love? But Sanji isn't buying it. He makes it clear he's not going through with the wedding and he's not playing Prince. And just when things are already tense, guess who struts in? Vinsmoke Judge, Sanji's father. He is about as warm and fuzzy as a freaking cactus. He immediately starts mocking Sanji, calling him a crybaby and trying to pull the classic "I'm your father, show some respect" routine. But Sanji claps back and tells Judge he already has a father and it sure as hell ain't him.
Show some respect, son. Don't call me your son. I already have a father, all right? It's not you.
Damn! Judge doesn't take that too well, and like the petty man he is, he tells Sanji to settle this outside. Sanji and Judge take their family drama to the courtyard for a good old father-son showdown, right in front of onlooking Germa soldiers. But this isn't just a sparring match, it's years of rejection, resentment, and rage boiling over. As they fight, flashes of Sanji's awful childhood come rushing back. Memories of beatings, bullying, and being treated like trash by his siblings while his father did nothing to help. Yikes. Judge, of course, fights dirty. I mean, this dude has got fancy tech, a big electro spear, and zero emotional maturity. On his part, Sanji fights back with his signature Diabole Jamba, but Judge cheats his way to the upper hand. He calls in soldiers to form a wall between them. Sanji, rightfully furious, demands that they get out of the way. So what does Judge do? He stabs right through one of his own men just to hit Sanji with an electric blast. Yeah, this guy is dad of the year, alright. After the fight, they move back inside the castle where Sanji's being patched up by Reiju. Judge uses this as an opportunity to twist the trauma knife even deeper. He tells Sanji that he never even saw him as a son. To him, Sanji's just a pawn to secure a political alliance with Big Mom. No love, no bond, just cold, plain strategy. Sanji, almost holding out a sliver of hope that his family might have changed, realizes that they're actually worse than he remembered. As Sanji's still processing that gut punch, Reiju suddenly slaps exploding cuffs onto his wrists. And the key to the cuffs are with Big Mom. If Sanji refuses to go through with the wedding, his precious hands will be blown to smithereens. Damn, not the hands! Sanji tries to yank them off, but Reiju stops him, warning that tampering with them will only trigger the explosion faster.
Stop that.
Later, Sanji stands alone on the balcony staring at his chained wrists as he remembers Zeff's teachings about only using his hands for cooking, and our boy is heartbroken. Fast forward to the day before the big wedding. Sanji isn't exactly thrilled. During a tense family dinner, Sanji notices his older brother Niji leaving food on his plate. Sanji tells him to finish it, but Niji acts like a spoiled brat and throws the plate at the female head chef instead. Sanji catches the plate mid-air and scolds Niji for trying to hurt a woman. Then, Sanji picks up the food from the floor and eats it, complimenting the chef's cooking and making her cry tears of gratitude. Niji tries to kick Sanji for that little display, but Judge stops him. In an impassioned moment, Sanji stands firm and renounces his family right to their faces. That's when Judge pulls out his trump card. He shows Sanji a photo of Zeff, his beloved father figure from the Baratie, and coldly threatens his life if Sanji dares to step out of line. Ah, damn it! Later on, Sanji finds the head chef all beaten up, and he just knows Niji's the one butthurt enough to do this. Sanji's younger brother Yonji shows up and offers to take Sanji to him, but instead, he brings Sanji to a creepy lab filled with giant tanks. Inside the tanks are Germa soldier clones. Yonji casually explains that Germa's army is made up of mass-produced super soldiers. Before Sanji can fully process this sci-fi nightmare, Ichiji, the second eldest vinsmoke, and Niji show up. Sanji immediately kicks Niji across the face in pure rage.
How friggin' dare you! Hurt Cosette!
Just when Sanji thought he could finally let his anger out, Ichiji hits him with a reminder. If he fights back, Zeff's life is on the line. That threat hits Sanji pretty hard, and in that moment of hesitation, Niji swiftly retaliates with an attack that leaves Sanji unable to move. To make things worse, Ichiji piles on the emotional damage by calling Sanji the family failure, which is basically an insult he had to endure in his childhood. And just like that, we're thrown into a flashback from hell. Turns out, all of the Vinsmoke kids were part of a high-tech science project gone sort of right. Judge, their lovely mad scientist of a dad, genetically modified them to be superhuman, super strong, super fast, super tough. They even grew exoskeletons to make their skin hard as steel. It's like if Power Rangers and Lab Rats had a crossover. But then, there's Sanji. Poor Sanji. The experiment didn't work on him. No exoskeleton, no super strength, just a normal kid who couldn't keep up with his robotic siblings. And boy, did he suffer some of the worst kind of bullying. A weak human child versus 3 humanoid machines was always going to end with Sanji getting his ass kicked. I say 3 because during those bullying seasons, Reiju had to pretend she was against Sanji so she wouldn't get picked on as well.
When they're mean, you laugh also. How come?
It's not like I have a choice. If I try to stop them, then they'll just start picking on me. No thanks.
At some point, Judge was so ashamed he decided Sanji was a lost cause. So what does any desperately ambitious father do in this situation? Well, just slap a metal mask on the kid, throw him in a dungeon, and tell the world he died in a tragic accident. And make a public funeral to boot? Yeah, Judge really went for the worst dad of the century back then. Sanji spent 6 months in that dungeon, with the mask only coming off for meals. During the incarceration, we get an additional flashback about Sanji's mom, Sora. You see, while pregnant, Sora secretly took a drug to stop the modifications of her children into emotionless soldiers. Her goal was simple: at least one of her kids should grow up with feelings, dreams, and the ability to cry at sad movies. The good news? It worked. The bad news? It only worked on Sanji, and it ruined her health in the process. Despite being sick, Sora adored her little boy. One time, Sanji cooked her a meal. Sure, it got completely ruined on the way to her hospital room, but she loved the effort anyway. That little moment sparked something in him. That was the day Sanji discovered his love for cooking. Back in the Germa dungeon, Sanji found a cookbook that mentioned the All Blue, a legendary ocean where fish from all over the world gather. It became his dream: the All Blue, cooking, and freedom. It was way better than being locked up with rats and regret. Sanji's brother eventually figured out he was still alive, so they continued from where they left off, bullying their weak brother in his dungeon for sport. Reiju would visit, patch him up, but make it clear that she wouldn't go against a family. She could only do so much. Then came the big break. The Germa kingdom was crossing over from the North Blue into the East Blue, and Sanji told Reiju he wanted out. He didn't care about being a prince. He didn't want power. He just wanted to cook. So she did it. She busted him out of the cell and set him free. After the prison break, Sanji ran straight into his father's room to grab the key to his iron mask. Judge finds him, and instead of stopping him, Judge gave him the go-ahead on one condition: pretend this family never existed. Sanji tearfully agrees. As emotionally damaging as it was, the kid was more happy to erase the Vinsmoke name from his life. So, while Germa 66 was busy attacking a nearby island, Reiju pointed Sanji to a cruise ship called the Orbit and told him to leave everything behind.
Run away! Run, Sanji!
And he did. From that moment on, Sanji stopped being a prince. He became just another boy chasing a dream, running from his past, and walking straight into an uncertain future. The flashback ends and we're back to adult Sanji lying flat on the floor. After being beaten to a bloody mess by his brothers, the scene hits even harder after the flashback we just witnessed. Reiju comes in clutch, however. After shooing away the doctors, she single-handedly takes care of her little bro because she's gunning for best sister in the series. I mean, she's the only sibling who actually gives a damn, although she still doesn't understand why Sanji puts up with all the blackmail just to protect a restaurant owner. Later in a dressing room, Reiju places a weird jelly-like mask on Sanji's face to hide his injuries. Can't have the groom looking all messed up now, can we? She tells him Pudding might genuinely like him, and that he could still have a good life if he just plays along. Before leaving, Reiju asks Sanji where his chivalry comes from, why he refuses to hit women. Sanji remembers Zeff's teachings and simply regurgitates it. He's just following the golden rule from the age of the dinosaurs. The golden rule being you never hit a lady no matter what. Who would have thought Zeff was the OG simp after all? We then see Sanji in a carriage heading to the Whole Lake Chateau with his family to exchange gifts with Big Mom. Out of nowhere, Luffy and Nami catch up with the Vinsmokes. Luffy jumps onto the carriage and is excited to see Sanji again, and he tells him to come back to the crew. But Sanji remembers all the threats from his biological father, how Zeff's life is still in danger, and how he is trapped in this marriage proposal. So, to protect everyone, Sanji pretends not to care about the Straw Hats, and what happens next is one of the most heartbreaking moments in his entire story. Sanji kicks Luffy off the carriage and says really hurtful things, acting like he's chosen the royal life over his friends.
Frankly, you guys are poor and weak, especially compared to the Big Mom pirates who are generous enough to take me in.
Luffy doesn't fight back. He just stands there, taking every kick. Not because he can't fight, but because he sees through Sanji's predicament. Even after Sanji knocks him unconscious, Luffy still stubbornly persists. Nami, now heartbroken and pissed, slaps Sanji for saying such cruel things and beating up their captain. When Sanji starts riding away in the carriage, Luffy stumbles up and shouts after him, saying he knows all of the insults and beatings were fake. He insists that he isn't going anywhere and that he won't eat a single bite of food unless it was made by Sanji himself. Damn. As if that wasn't enough, Luffy declares that he can't become the king of the pirates if Sanji isn't by his side.
Without you! Without you! I'll
Damn, it's those onions again. Hearing that, Sanji breaks down in tears. He doesn't say a word, but deep inside, he's a total mess. His captain hasn't given up on him, and that unconditional love and trust hurt more than anything else. As the Vinsmoke family carriage rolls up to Big Mom's castle, Sanji spots something truly terrifying. A whole army of Big Mom pirates heading straight toward where Luffy and Nami are. Oh boy. Unfortunately, Sanji's basically a hostage at this point, so his hands are tied. Once the Vinsmokes arrive at the Whole Cake Chateau, it's time for an awkward pre-wedding meal. The Vinsmokes, Pudding, and Big Mom all sit down to eat like one big happy family. During the meal, Pudding hands Sanji a note asking to talk in private. Inside her room, Pudding starts apologizing. In their first meeting, she'd promised to help reunite Sanji with his crew, but things got out of hand. Sanji finally opens up. He shows her his bruised face and the explosive cuffs on his wrists. Pudding is in complete shock. Then he tells her everything, how cruel his family has been, why he ran away from Germa years ago, and how they're using Zeff's life to force him into this marriage. There's no easy escape. If he runs, someone he loves could die, or he could lose his hands, which to a chef is a death sentence in itself. Sanji, clearly hurting, tells Pudding he plans to ask Big Mom for one thing. Let Luffy and the crew go free in exchange for him going through with the wedding. Pudding gets emotional and starts crying.
After all, you and I have only just met, so how could I possibly hope to fill the hole in your heart?
Seeing her reaction, Sanji, being Sanji, hugs her and says he'll marry her. It's not the life he wanted, but at least this way, the people he loves might stay safe. Later, Sanji has a sit down with Big Mom. He tells her he's willing to go through with the wedding as long as she lets his friends go unharmed. Big Mom smiles and agrees, saying if he plays along, she'll pretend Luffy's little break-in into her territory never happened. Sanji thanks her and says he'll do his best to make Pudding a happy waifu. But deep down, our boy is still hurting. So in a bid to stay positive, he heads outside to pick some flowers for Pudding. He even cooks her a meal since she didn't eat anything for dinner. While preparing the food, a servant casually fills him in on what's going on with his crew. That's when Sanji realizes things might not be as under control as he hoped. Luffy and Nami have been captured, while Brook and the others are causing a lot of trouble in Big Mom's territory. After putting together a bento meal for Pudding, Sanji tries to deliver it to Pudding's room like a polite gentleman. However, the door, which is sentient thanks to Big Mom's powers, tells him he has no permission. So Sanji goes full Romeo and climbs up to the balcony instead, but what he sees through the window sends him into a state of shock. Inside, Pudding is chatting with Reiju, except this isn't the sweet, bashful bride-to-be Sanji thought he was marrying. No, this is an evil with 3 eyeballs.
You cannot honestly be that naive. You think I'd marry that low-life pirate? Ha! You must be out of your freaking mind.
The wicked smile, she spills the big tea to Reiju. Big Mom is planning to massacre the entire Vinsmoke family at the wedding, then take over Germa 66. Yeah, it's full-on betrayal. Reiju herself has already been shot and incapacitated. I guess having an iron skin doesn't fly around these parts. Sanji hears everything, even as Pudding mocks his bloated face, mocks his chivalry, and calls him a gullible idiot for falling for her fake performance. Damn! This man can cook a perfect steak but can't catch a break. After quietly slipping away, Sanji makes his way to the infirmary. Reiju is receiving treatment for her injury, although she can't remember exactly how she got injured in the first place, thanks to Pudding using her ability to wipe her memory. But Sanji fills her in on the ugly truth. Reiju recalls thinking how Pudding seemed so perfect, which led her to investigate her future sister-in-law, and in the process, she ended up getting shot. However, as bad as Big Mom's betrayal sounds, Reiju remains unfazed by it. In fact, she wants the whole of Germa to be destroyed, even if she ends up dead. She believes the Vinsmokes are trash and urges Sanji to leave ASAP and rejoin the Straw Hats. But our boy Sanji's not built like that. He still doesn't want Reiju to die with the rest. And that's when she tells Sanji that their mom Sora sacrificed herself to protect his humanity.
You are the future Mother wanted to see. That's why you're kinder and more tender than anyone.
Now that's a lot to take in, but Reiju isn't done yet. She reveals she already swapped out his explosive bracelets for fake ones, and finally, she tells him to leave with his crew and forget the Vinsmoke name once and for all. Even after learning all this, Sanji still can't bring himself to run away. His mind keeps going back to the Baratie chefs and the Straw Hat crew, so he sits alone in Big Mom's castle, lost in thought, trying to convince himself that going through with this sham of a wedding is the only way to keep everyone safe. He looks down at the bento box he made for Pudding and realizes that it's filled with the favorite foods of his crewmates, and the memories just keep coming back until he can't shake them off anymore. He picks up the bento box and heads straight for the place where Luffy said he'd be waiting. And sure enough, he finds Luffy there, weak and starving, but still holding on. Since their last encounter, Luffy had fought like 100 pirates. He'd gotten knocked unconscious, thrown in prison, and he'd ended up breaking out of prison just so he could return to the same spot he last saw Sanji. What a captain, man! I'd happily follow him anywhere he goes. Anyway, Luffy wakes up the moment he smells Sanji's food. Sanji gives him the bento, and though the food is mostly soggy because of the rain, Luffy eats all of it with reckless abandon. After the meal, Luffy tells Sanji to come back, but Sanji hesitates. He explains everything: his family, the threats, the impossible choice he's been forced to make. He says he can't abandon his family to die no matter how awful they are. That's when Luffy smacks the ever-living out of him. Not out of anger, but to snap him out of denial. Sanji finally breaks down and admits he wants to come back to the crew more than anything, but he feels trapped. Luffy gives him his full support and says they'll ruin the wedding together. Teamwork. No more playing by Big Mom's rules.
Have us, Sanji, and we'll crash that party!
Freaking finally! It feels great seeing them working together again. Sanji is relieved to hear that Nami is safe, but he also feels terrible about their last exchange. When they speak through a piece of mirror because this island is littered with different magical abilities, Nami doesn't let him off easy. She says she's still upset, but she's willing to set that aside to get him back. We also meet this guy. His name is Jinbei, and he's a former warlord of the sea and an old buddy of Luffy's. He's the badass who broke Luffy out of Big Mom's prison. The thing is, he's been a Big Mom underling for years and has witnessed her cruelty, her gluttonous rampage, her annoying habit of abusing her emperor status to get whatever she wants. But now, he's grown sick and tired of her. So, in order to help Luffy, Jinbei shares the scoop on Capone Beji, who's secretly planning to take out Big Mom at the wedding. Turns out, betrayal isn't a one-way street. Sanji is stunned when Luffy agrees to team up with Beji, but at this point, nothing about this wedding feels normal. Beji and Luffy finally meet to seal the deal on their wild team-up. At first, because Luffy hasn't met Beji before, he mistakes Chiffon, Beji's wife, for her husband. But that gets cleared up real quick. Both Luffy and Beji are clearly in this for different reasons. Beji wants to take down Big Mom so that he can boost his rep as a fearsome gangster. Luffy, on the other hand, just wants to grab Sanji, bounce out, and maybe eat some food along the way. Beji informs the Straw Hats that someone will have to break the portrait of Big Mom's foster parent, Mother Caramel. This act of vandalism will quickly put Big Mom in a weakened state of screaming, making her vulnerable to their poison gas attack. Oh, and Caesar's here too, thanks to Beji blackmailing him. To make things a bit easier going forward, I'll be referring to this group as the Alliance. Alright, so we then cut to the big beautiful wedding. Sanji and Pudding are carried by a sentient cloud as the spectators look on in awe. They look like a picture-perfect couple. Sanji knows Pudding's been lying to him, but he still gets a little dazzled by how gorgeous she looks. When it's time for a kiss, Sanji lifts her veil and sees her third eye, Pudding's secret weapon to freak people out before blowing their heads off. She expects Sanji to flinch. Instead, he tells her that her eye is beautiful. So now she's the one caught off guard. Being complimented on her third eye was definitely not on her bingo card, as she's had to deal with bullying since childhood for how nasty it made her look. Pudding breaks down crying in front of the whole crowd. The priest, clearly in on the assassination plan, tries to shoot Sanji on the spot, but Katakuri, Big Mom's strongest son who can literally see into the future, realizes Sanji's gonna dodge it. So he hurls a deadly jelly bean at him. Yeah, a jelly bean, but Sanji dodges that too. The jelly bean ends up hitting the priest instead.
That's no use, he'll miss.
Talk about divine punishment. Just when things start getting chaotic, Luffy explodes out of the wedding cake like it's his birthday party. But wait, there are tons of Luffys. Turns out the Straw Hats captured Big Mom's daughter Brûlée, whose mirror powers can clone people among other crazy things. Now, there's a whole army of Luffys wrecking the party. Sanji scoops up Pudding and dives off the altar as the whole wedding cake crashes down. Once they land, Pudding has a full-blown meltdown and starts trying to shoot Sanji on the spot. He dodges every bullet, and when he calmly asks if she ever really meant to hurt him, she starts crying again. Sheesh, get a grip, lady. Pudding's brother Daifuku shows up, annoyed that she failed her mission. He slaps her aside and starts, rubbing himself in order to summon a massive genie to beat Sanji into submission. Sanji tries fighting back, but gets worried when he sees his family tied up and about to be executed. He yells for his sister Reiju to run, but the genie pins him down before he can reach them. Although Mother Caramel's photo got shattered during the chaos, the Emperor still didn't react the way the Alliance anticipated. Instead of screaming, Big Mom just started muttering away and whining about how she wants another wedding cake. Then, Luffy grabs the shattered photo of Mother Caramel and shoves it right in Big Mom's face, which is really all it takes. Big Mom lets out a horrific scream that literally knocks out some of her own kids. That gives Sanji the chance to break free and rescue his family, who are now being held at gunpoint. In their defense, the Vinsmokes weren't allowed to enter the tea party with their raid suits. These scientifically enhanced outfits are the perfect defensive and offensive weapons, and each suit is unique to each Vinsmoke. Anyway, Sanji pulls up like a badass, and this unbelievably poetic visual of Sanji staring down at his Vinsmoke father Mwah! Chef's kiss. Meanwhile, Beji and his gang try launching poison missiles at Big Mom, but her scream is so powerful it blows up the rockets mid-air. With the plan falling apart, Caesar Clown swoops in with a magic mirror to help everyone escape, but just as they're about to jump through it, Big Mom's next scream shatters the mirror into pieces, trapping the entire alliance right in the middle of the chaos. So yeah, the wedding turns into an absolute disaster. But hey, at least nobody was left at the altar. Soon enough, Beji turns into a literal walking fortress. Yeah, a human castle. And Sanji quickly waves his dad over to get inside before things get even messier. Meanwhile, the rest of the Vinsmoke siblings throw on their flashy raid suits and go full Power Rangers on Big Mom's kids, who are holding some of the Straw Hats hostage. As Big Mom begins launching furious attacks at Beji's fortress, Judge turns to Sanji and asks why on earth he even bothered saving him. Sanji, never one to mince words, says he did it for Zeff, the only father who ever mattered to him, and tells Judge to stay far away from the old man and the East Blue. Judge doesn't argue. Being saved by the kid he despised all these years must be a different level of embarrassment. Anyway, to compensate for the lost aura points, Judge decides to help the Alliance in their escape. But just when things seem like they might work out, the Big Mom pirates ambush the Allied forces and capture everyone, Sanji, Luffy, and the Vinsmokes included.
But I'll help you rest in peace, Judge. I'm going to be making the whole world peaceful.
Big Mom is about ready to dish out executions to everyone, but then a bomb that fell to the bottom of the Whole Cake Chateau suddenly explodes and the whole castle starts toppling over. Beji's crew and the Vinsmokes use this opportunity to get away, but the Straw Hats aren't so lucky. Big Mom is already having a hunger-fueled wedding cake meltdown, and she blames Luffy for ruining her tea party. So now, the Straw Hats must pay for the sins of their captain. But remember what I mentioned earlier about Sanji and him cooking for the enemy? Yeah, Sanji's wildest baking adventure kicks off when Pudding and Chiffon suddenly show up. Chiffon is also one of Big Mom's daughters, by the way. Pudding tries to explain the mission, bake a giant cake to stop a rampaging Big Mom. But this girl keeps tripping over her own mood swings. One second, she's swooning over Sanji. The next, she's ready to murder him. Then, right back to blushing again.
Sanji! He's running away like a rat! You okay?
Ma'am, are you bipolar? Anyway, Chiffon steps in and takes charge, asking Sanji to help bake a cake that's good enough to calm Big Mom down. Sanji, being the gentleman chef he is, agrees immediately. I mean, Big Mom is in full rage mode, chasing the Straw Hats across the sea like a sugar-crazed monster. She's screaming for wedding cake, and if she doesn't get one soon, she's going to destroy the Straw Hats' ship, the crew, and possibly the ocean for good measure. Sanji knows they're all doomed if she keeps chasing them, so he comes up with a plan. Give the woman what she wants. A cake so good it'll blow her taste buds into next week. If he can distract her with dessert, the rest of the crew might just get the window they need to escape. So, Sanji, Pudding, and Chiffon hop on Rabion, Pudding's flying mat, and take the trio off to Cacao Island. Sanji vows to bake a cake so good it'll knock Big Mom flat, putting her and her rampage out of commission. Once they reach Cacao Island, Pudding and Chiffon sneak Sanji into the sweets factory, where Pudding uses her ability to brainwash 31 top-tier chefs into thinking the wedding went smoothly and the first cake got ruined in a storm. So in their eyes, Sanji is now Pudding's husband and not an enemy of Big Mom. Inside the factory, Sanji finally pops out of hiding and shows off a replica of the wedding cake that he designed, all from memory and using nothing but his sense of smell. Chiffon is stunned, and the chefs are basically starstruck. This guy draws blueprints like he's on Cake Master Chef or something. Sanji lays out the plan. They have just 3 hours to bake this masterpiece. Chiffon will handle the base, Pudding's on chocolate duty, and Sanji's whipping up a secret ingredient. Less than 3 hours later, Sanji finishes his secret weapon, the Sim Sim cream, and it's so sweet, one of the chefs literally faints after tasting it.
I could die. Happy, cause it's so tasty.
Suddenly I'm craving sweets as well. With the cake done and packed, Sanji and the crew get ready to deliver it, hoping this dessert will be the key to saving everyone and putting Big Mom in a sugar coma. Sanji, now undercover and traveling with Pudding, Chiffon, and a crew of elite chefs, is on the move with the new wedding cake. But just as they're leaving the factory, they're ambushed by Oven, Big Mom's hot-headed son who's furious with Chiffon for helping her husband Beji try to kill Big Mom. Things start to get heated, but before Oven can land a serious hit, Sanji zips in like a heat-seeking missile and kicks him square in the head, scooping up Chiffon in the same breath. They race to the harbor, but Oven isn't done yet. He reappears, ready to use Chiffon as bait to make Beji surrender. Right on cue, Beji's ship comes rolling in. Not sailing, rolling, because this ship has tank treads. That's right, a tank ship hybrid. As it thunders towards the shore, Beji casually fires a cannonball straight into Oven's face, blowing him away and freeing his wife. Now it's Sanji's turn to shine. He launches the entire chef carriage, Pudding, Chiffon, cake and all, into the air with a flawless kick, landing it perfectly onto the ship's deck. Then he jumps aboard like the coolest action hero you've ever seen. Oven, being the sore loser he is, tries to boil the sea to stop them, but Pound, Chiffon's long-lost dad, steps in to stop him by whacking him in the head. With Oven finally off their backs, Sanji and the chefs get back to business, decorating the cake mid-escape. Sanji hops onto Rabian with Pudding and secretly flies back to the Straw Hat ship. Nami and Brook greet him with warm hugs. Nami especially looks like she missed him a lot, but there's no time for celebration. The crew sets course to go rescue Luffy, who's been fighting Katakuri for hours now. Sanji and Pudding fly toward Luffy's location on Rabion. While cruising through the sky, Sanji thanks Pudding for everything she's done. Just a simple thank you, but it hits her like a truck. She blushes so hard it's a miracle Rabion doesn't burst into flames. Upon reaching his final destination, Sanji tells Pudding this is goodbye. Then, in typical Sanji fashion, he hits her with a line so smooth it breaks her heart. He says he's genuinely glad she was his fiancé. Pudding's emotional walls come crashing down and she starts fighting back tears.
One last thing. Before you go. Stay right there. Please.
Then, unexpectedly, Pudding pulls him in for a kiss. A real kiss. Mind you, this will be Sanji's first kiss in the entire series, and just when you think Sanji will remember this moment forever, Pudding uses her memory erasing powers and wipes it from his mind, along with her final request. So Sanji doesn't even remember what just happened, nor whatever request she asked of it. Damn. On another part of Big Mom's turf, Beji and his crew finally drop the wedding cake off on Fluffy Island where Chiffon is in charge, or used to be in charge, since she's now a traitor for staying loyal to her man apparently. Big Mom shows up, eyes locked on that cake like a shark smelling blood. Her kids are freaking out. What if the cake's poisoned? Or worse, what if it tastes awful and sets her off even more? Best case scenario, the cake actually slaps and saves everyone's skin. Big Mom reaches the cake, stares it down, and dives in like her life depends on it. With how skinny she now looks, her life probably does depend on it. Every bite she takes is pure bliss, so much so that she straight up flops onto her back like she's been hit by a flavor freight train. She starts seeing visions, like the cake has opened the pearly gates to dessert heaven.
This tastes so lovely. I could die.
The rampage stops, the yelling stops, and out of nowhere, Big Mom starts singing. Literally singing, because Sanji's cake is just that damn good. Best chef ever. After Sanji scoops up a beat-up Luffy and takes him to their ship, the Big Mom pirates start chasing and blasting away at them. But look who's back again to redeem himself. Vinsmoke Judge swooping in with Germa 66 to block the attacks. Right before they go their separate ways again, Judge just can't help himself. He marches up and throws shade at Sanji in front of Luffy, ranting like a bitter Amazon reviewer. He's like, "Why would you risk your life for a failure like my son?" Then he starts listing all of Sanji's flaws like it's some kind of roast. He's got soft skin, he bleeds like a normal human, he cooks for people instead of behaving like royalty. And worst of all, he actually cares about others who were weak. Unbelievable. Luffy, being the absolute king of not giving a damn, doesn't even dignify Judge with a response.
Well, see ya! Thanks for all the help! I asked you a question, Straw Hat! Answer me!
And honestly, that kind of feigned ignorance hits harder than any insult ever could. Or maybe Luffy's just not the sharpest sword in the armory, because right after Judge rants about how weak and useless Sanji is, Luffy literally turns to Sanji all cheerful and asks why his dad was saying such nice things about him all of a sudden. I guess one man's insult is another man's compliment apparently. Once the Straw Hats finally escape Big Mom's territory and things calm down a bit, we find out that Sanji's brother Niji secretly slipped him a raid suit, but Sanji isn't thrilled. He sees it as a big slap in the face, a reminder of his awful family. So naturally, he tries to chuck it into the ocean like it's garbage. But then, Luffy and Chopper start begging him to keep it. Cause come on, it looks super cool.
What are you guys, 10 years old?
Sanji rolls his eyes and gives in, though he doesn't actually use it, not yet. In the Wano arc, where all the Straw Hats reunite to take on another emperor, Sanji finally pulls the raid suit out of storage. Not because he wants to be a Germa warrior, but because he needs a disguise. And also, it turns out the suit is pretty handy in a fight, especially when going up against the Beast Pirates. So yeah, even if it came with emotional baggage, it still packs a lot of punch. However, after Sanji wears the raid suit for like the third time, he starts to feel different. Not bad, but definitely strange. It turns out the suit is triggering some weird genetic power inside of him, something he wasn't aware he even had. These powers are the same enhancements his cold, emotionless brothers have, enhancements that were suppressed by his mother's drugs during pregnancy. Now, Sanji's body is unlocking these abilities whether he likes it or not. The change is most notable during his fight with Queen, an Emperor Commander. After being crushed and broken, Sanji somehow manages to get back on his feet, his body snapping back into shape like it's made of elastic. His bones may be cracked, but he's still moving like nothing happened. Queen even tries to strike him with a sword, and the sword shatters against Sanji's skull. He feels a bit of pain, sure, but mostly just a lot of irritation. But here's the catch. Sanji hates this. He's not interested in becoming a walking, emotionless machine like his brothers. If the suit keeps triggering these changes, he might end up losing everything that makes him him. Sanji's worst fear isn't dying, it's losing his emotions, his compassion, his humanity. So he does the best thing he can think of. He destroys the raid suit, a final act of cutting whatever ties he has left with the Vinsmokes. Because for Sanji, being strong doesn't matter if it means losing who he truly is. And that's the full entree of Sanji's story. At least for now. Sanji's backstory is honestly one of my favorites of all time. It's packed with all sorts of emotions. First, you're laughing, then you're tearing up, and then you're mad and begging for the next episode. Still, the good news is that Sanji's journey is far from over. I mean, he's still searching for the All Blue, and at some point he has to reunite with Zeff. At least I hope he does, so fingers crossed we get that moment. What really sticks out to me about this journey is nobody's meant to go through life alone. Even when things get messy, even when you feel like you don't belong anywhere, there's always someone out there who wants you to keep going, someone who needs you around. Sanji's clearly been through the ringer, and he's still standing, still cooking, and still fighting for the people he loves. And that's what makes his story worth telling. Well, up until next time then, have a good day, and as usual, thanks for watching.